Have you ever admired singers or instrumentalists who can beautifully harmonize any song on the spot effortlessly? Two-part harmonization is a skill that can be learned and applied to many arrangements. Composing a harmony requires a thorough understanding of intervals and of interval inversion. An interval becomes inverted when the lower pitch is raised by an octave, or when the higher pitch is lowered by an octave. Here we began with a fifth, because there are 5 steps between F and C. Remember, when determining an intervals, we count the starting note as 1. After the inversion, the pitches keep the same note names, in this case F and C, but the relationship between them changes. The interval has now become a fourth, as there are 4 steps between C and F. All fifths invert to fourths, and fourths invert to fifths. Every interval within the octave has an inversion. Seconds invert to sevenths, and sevenths invert to seconds. Thirds invert to sixths, and sixths invert to thirds. Fourths invert to fifths, and fifths invert to fourths. Notice that there is a magic number of 9 here, which is a handy way of checking your answer when inverting an interval. A similar result universally applies to the interval quality. Minor inverts to major after inversion. Major inverts to minor. Augmented inverts to diminished after inversion. And diminished inverts to augmented. Perfect intervals remain perfect after inversion. An interval and its inversion have a similar sound. Listen to this major third and to this minor sixth. This similarity can be used to our advantage when harmonizing a melody to result in a smoother, more singable option. We will begin with harmonizing below the melody. This is because the highest pitch tends to grab the listener's attention, and we don't want to detract from the melody. It's a good idea to harmonize the most important notes of a melody first. These important notes are referred to as target notes, as they are what we are aiming for when harmonizing the notes in between. Target notes are chord tones that usually fall on metric accents, chord changes, or climax points of the melody. The following notes of our melody fall on metric accents and chord changes, and so we'll choose them as our target notes. After identifying the target notes, we will harmonize them with chord tones. If the target note is any chord tone other than the root, simply use a third below. The target note is E, which is the third of the C major chord, and so we'll harmonize it using a third below, which is C, or the root. The second target note is C, which is the third of the A minor chord, and so we'll harmonize it using a third below, which is A, or the root. The next target note is E, which is the fifth of the A minor chord. Again, because this is a chord tone other than the root, we'll harmonize it using a third below. If the target note is the root of the chord, we cannot harmonize it using a third below, as a third below the root does not produce a chord tone. In measure 2 of our example, the F in the melody is the root of the F major chord. A third below F is D, which is not a chord tone. Since we are using chord tones to harmonize all target notes, we cannot use the D. The solution is to use the sixth below the target note, which in this case is an A. What we are doing, in effect, is choosing the third above the root and inverting it so that it becomes a sixth below the root. We are also inverting the quality of the interval. In this case, the major third between F and A becomes a minor sixth between A and F. The next target note, a D, is the fifth of the G major chord, and so we'll harmonize it using a third below. The following target note, a B, is the third of the G major chord, and so again, we'll harmonize it using a third below. The last target note of the melody is a C, which is the root of the C major chord. As before, we cannot harmonize the root of the chord with a third below. In this case, a third below C is an A, which is not part of the C major chord. We will therefore choose a minor sixth below the target note. This results in an E, which is the third of the chord. Now that we have harmonized all of the target notes, we will begin to harmonize the notes in between. Notes that precede target notes are referred to as approach notes. Unlike chord tones, approach notes do not have to be harmonized with chord tones. When harmonizing approach notes, we usually use the same harmonization as the upcoming target note. For example, the first approach note in this example is D. It precedes a target note C that is harmonized using a third below. And so, in order to maintain the smoothest voice leading possible, we will also harmonize the approach note with a third below. The next approach note is also a D. It precedes a target note, E, that is harmonized using a third below. We can continue to use this method to create a harmonization that is smooth, consonant, and adds richness to the line. You can practice this technique by notating and harmonizing your favorite melodies. Doing so eventually will pay off with the ability to harmonize any song.